Hey, this is Doc Yates. Welcome to Perimenopause Bliss, and today I want to talk about 7 simple steps that you can use to improve your brain fog. So let's dive right into it because I don't want to get into medications, things that have lots of side effects and lots of problems. I want to talk about getting to the root cause. So because this is for my Perimenopause Bliss listeners, I want to talk point number 1 will be hormone balance. Once you are in your 40s, going into your 50s, your hormones start to change, and with that, you will see problems often with brain fog developing as one of the symptoms. So if you fit into that category, you want to make sure that you get your hormones checked, get your progesterone balanced, and then if that is the root cause, you will see an improvement in your focus, in your concentration, and a reduction of the brain fog. Which takes us to point number 2. Your thyroid. It's not uncommon that when your hormones start changing that your thyroid can also start changing and typically moving in a downward direction. When that happens, you not only will you get brain fog, typically you'll see problems with more fatigue, you'll be often cold, difficulty losing weight. You can see how much of the overlap there is with thyroid and the changes during perimenopause. So you always want, if you're going to get them checked, check them both together. Do not check just your TSH. Make sure you check your free T3 and your free T4 at the same time. You want to get the full picture. The next point that is often overlooked, even if you talk to your pharmacist, but it's medications. If you're taking any medications, especially something like antidepressants or anti-anxiety medications, it's not uncommon that you will see problems with concentration, focus, and hence the symptoms of brain fog. So if that's the case, if you have recently started something, I say recent, I mean within 6 months, or if you had a dose increase during that time within 6 months that you started noticing these symptoms, you need to talk to whoever prescribed that to you and say, could it be this? Let's look into it and possibly lower the dose or change medications. Point number 4 is your diet, which typically means too much sugar. When you get too much sugar, you'll see your blood sugar spike, and at that point, you're kind of wired up, not focusing, and then it drops. And when it drops way too far, and then are you not only not focusing, you can barely keep your eyes open. This is when you see that classic 2 o'clock drop after lunch, and everyone's just hanging around at work and barely keep their eyes open. Too much sugar at lunch. So pull back on the sugar amount, and you will see an improvement with your focus. I run a weight loss program through the clinics, and with that, I pull back on people's sugar quite a bit. And even without sometimes doing any of these other corrections, people will see a big improvement with their energy, concentration, and focus. The next point is your sleep. You cannot have good concentration and have crappy sleep, at least not for a long period of time. So if you have any sleep disturbances, make sure you're getting those corrected, and we'll dive into a quick little bit about sleep. If the problem with your sleep is that you're waking up between 1 and 3 in the morning, and at that point you're getting stuck awake or you're restless after that point, that's perimenopausal. It's where your progesterone's dropping. We need to get that corrected. If you're actually sleeping through the night consistently and you're waking up just completely unrefreshed even after a good night's sleep, make sure you're getting that thyroid checked. And if you're at the either side of the spectrum, problems falling asleep, or you're waking up early, like 4 or 5 in the morning, and then you're just kind of lying there thinking, you're probably stressed out about something and you need to address whatever that is. Because if you're stressed and you're anxious, you will not be concentrating. All right, the next thing I want to talk about, point number 6, has to do with basically bacterial imbalance. We call it gut flora imbalance with your digestion. If you have too much yeast in your system or too much of the wrong type of bacteria, which we commonly refer to as SIBO, if this is the case, you will also have very poor concentration. Now, this does tie in quite a bit to the diet that we talked about earlier. Too much sugar can lead to too much yeast, which can release these byproducts, which makes your focus worse. So pull back on the sugar. Typically, you can use a product, any health food store has something called bitters. A lot of these bitters stimulate your digestion, but they also have herbs that kill off these bacteria, these yeast, and get that corrected. And finally, point number 7, which is where everybody always starts, this is the nootropics. Now, normally people like to start with the nootropics because it's something you can sell. And I'm not opposed to nootropics. I've used them all the time with clients, but it's not always going to be the starting point because it's not typically addressing the root cause of the issue. So if you're in perimenopause, check your hormones, check your thyroid, make sure you're not eating too much sugar, make sure your sleep is good. If all of those are corrected, and there's still problems with concentration, then it makes sense to dive into the nootropics. And the nootropics are typically herbal formulas. They will typically contain herbs such as, say, gotu kola, bacopa, also commonly known as brahmi. Sometimes you'll see ashwagandha or holy basil in the mix, depending on which formula you're using. Ginkgo can be in there, acarus, rosemary, sage. There's lots of different herbs that have been shown to improve blood flow to your brain and improve the neurotransmitters. So let's just do a quick recap. We're going to balance your hormones. We're going to make sure your thyroid's balanced. You're going to check with it if you're on any medications. Could they be causing any of these effects? Pull back on the sugar on your diet. That's point number 4. Point number 5, make sure you're getting a good night's sleep because it's crucial for everything. If there's any type of digestive issues, typically, now you're not going to know like, oh, I definitely have yeast and bacteria. You'd often have other things like you'd eat something, you're like, yeah, I bloat after everything. I'm always bloated. I'm always gassy. Get that checked. Or make these changes that we just talked about. And finally, the nootropics. So I hope this information was helpful. If you get these corrected, you're going to see a major increase in your focus and concentration. This is Doc Yates signing off.